My name is Daniel Weingarten. I'm a junior in college. I am an English creative writing major and in Los Angeles, California.
I'm Ashley. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I don't need a prescription for love.
What poetry means to me, it's kind of twofold, honestly. The first fold being that it's like a personal release. It's a way to kind of get my feelings out without having like sit down and have a conversation with someone. It's a way for me to voice everything I want to say and write down exactly how I feel, because how I feel might not always be able to be, translated to another person, but when I write it down, it comes out the right way. And then the second way is that it's a way of communication. I feel it's a type of art, and I feel most poems, there's always a person out there who listens to it and can receive it the right way, and it's just a way to share your joys, your sorrows, your pains, and your triumphs. So poetry is a means of connection also.
Poetry is a way for me to, I guess, tell stories that people don't like to tell, or to speak about the things that people are too timid to really dig into. I feel like there are a lot of truths in this world that are, kind of intimidating for some people, simply because of either the stigma that it carries, or just the nature of the topic itself. And I feel like it's important that for us to grow as individuals, for us to grow as a community, it's important that we expose ourselves to the realities of our own lives and each other's lives in order to, learn from each other and build from there. Yeah.
At the end of the day, it really is about delivering messages and taking people one step closer to discovering themselves and their inner selves.
A lot of things I write about now are things that I have experienced in the past, and they're just not like things that, I don't know, like I walked to school one morning and I got to school and classes were great, but more so things that happened that I feel like I couldn't articulate at the time. And so a lot of my poetry now is more so a reflection and me trying to make sense of why things happen the way they do, or how it made me feel. And because, if there's anything I've learned so far in this itty-bitty short lifespan of mine so far, is that, not everything is going to make sense. And I feel like my poetry more recently than ever has helped me make sense of a lot of the things that were once very, very confusing, that were once very daunting.
Whatever catches me by the throat is normally exactly what my inspiration is going to be. Oh, go away.
In terms of what personally inspires me, I think it's not necessarily the momentous occasions that occur in life, the catalysts, the moments that you can really look back at and say, wow, that was a life changer, something tragic, something exciting, something great. Not necessarily the event itself, but the events that precede that event, the events that come after. And I think a lot of the time we take that for granted, but I think the past few years, the past year and a half or so, I've been much more conscious of the big moments in my life and paying attention to what comes after that and drawing inspiration from that.
Okay, so as far as your own personal creative process, how are you able to come up with works like from scratch, like from an idea to finished product? Like, what is the bare bones of how it happens?
Step one, grab my pen.
That's a good first step.
No, I think it just depends. Like, some ideas definitely don't come from like thin air. Sometimes I've been lucky enough to have friends who send me prompts, and then that prompt will take me somewhere because I'll be free writing, and then I'm reading the free write back, and there'll be one line, and I'm like, oh, this is a great subject. But then sometimes I'll just be thinking, for one of my pieces, I have a piece about Trayvon Martin, and with that piece, literally, like, I had just been wrestling with the case for so long and just like trying to understand what it means to live in my skin in this country right now, and to like understand what the future may hold, and to like just think about my nieces and my nephews. And I was just walking and I thought of the first lines for it, like for what ended up being like the first part of my narrative section of it. Like, I was just walking and I was just like, you know what, if I have a son, there's a very good chance that his name will not matter because he'll still be black, you know what I mean? He'll still be in this country.
I'm gonna walk you through with an example because I think it'd just be easier. I wrote a poem, one of my best poems, I think, Spelling Bee, which is about essentially being raised by a single mother. And it's also about the father not being around. It's just as much about praising my mother as it is about acknowledging the fact that my father isn't there. And essentially the idea came to me one day when, right before I got to college, and my mom had a talk with me, and she was like, you know, it's been me and you for 18 years, and she was really emotional and really proud. And I wanted to let her know that I was thankful, but I couldn't find a way to really do it. And so I was like, well, I don't know, I maybe I'll write something down. And so I got a piece of paper, and I listed off, and this is what I normally do a lot of times, like I listed off stuff that I liked about my mom, and stuff that I missed about my dad, you know, what I wished I had around. And then I took like these key phrases, and I started making stanzas from these key phrases. And then from there I had a skeleton of a poem, and I was like, okay, well, how do I want to present it? Because I felt this was the type of poem that needed to be spoken.
So, when it comes down to writing my poems, I think it depends on the type of poem that I'm doing. When it's persona poems, where I'm taking over another person and telling their story, I make sure that I do a substantial amount of research to ensure that I do justice to their story. I think poetry is present in every form of art. I think poetry is synonymous with art in general, and what we consider poetry is simply a subset of art. Poetry is present in a painting, poetry is present in a sculpture, poetry is present in different written forms. So yeah, I think definitely, in that sense, poetry is art. Hey, I'm DJ. Who's got snacks? Everybody, who's got snacks? Everybody, come on, guys. Who's got snacks? I'm funnier than Daniel, and I know it, so whatever. It's cool. No big deal. No big deal. Professor Warren likes me more. Okay. Peace.